so quite a change also.
So, yeah, so much fun, isn't it?
Churchill is a man who, through his genius and unyielding strength of character, has shaped our destiny more than anyone else. That's very well put, I think. That afternoon, Churchill's speech focused on the future of Europe. He spoke about the need for unity and the power of standing together to preserve peace. His message was a pure, powerful plea in a time defined by fears of the communist threat from the East. Churchill's bust in the Churchill Park in Copenhagen can be seen there, and it also serves as a reminder of something very important. Freedom comes at a cost, but it is definitely worth fighting for. This year is a very special year because it's both the 80th Jubilee of the liberation of Europe, but it's also the 60th anniversary of the passing of Churchill. His message of unity and courage remains just as relevant today as they were in the time. Churchill once said, "Let us go forward together," and my wish is that we take these words by heart. We're strongest when we stand together. May we never forget the courage and vigilance of Sir Winston Churchill and the message of freedom which he inspired.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am so honoured and thrilled to be here today and to be here to celebrate my great-grandfather's humanity, his paintings. It must have been truly thrilling when my great-grandfather came with his wife Clementine here in 1950. I don't know, I think you're probably all too young to remember that visit. But the fact that so many came out on the streets to greet him, and of course you had your own heroes, those people who fought undercover to cherish the spirit of the Danish people, the people who undoubtedly invaded our own country many generations ago and brought your culture so far and wide. But the bravery of those individuals who stood up against the totalitarianism, the Nazism, and stood up for the freedoms. And I feel so privileged to be part of the younger generation. You know, the greatest thing that's happened in my lifetime is the Berlin Wall coming down. I drove to Berlin straight afterwards, so I have at home my own little piece of the Berlin Wall. But every day we have to fight for those freedoms because we face really difficult times. The poor Ukrainian people, you know, President Zelensky has been truly remarkable. But the democracies, we all have to stand together. And in the office of the mayor, it's very important that we persuade younger generations not to just listen to TikTok and sound bites, but to learn history, to understand political issues, and to participate in society. Because, you know, society is nothing more than a collection of people coming together to make things work together. I think also the joy, particularly when you're in political office and, or in high office, is you have to have interests that make you the human being you are, that makes you interested in every aspect. And Churchill was always interested in every aspect of life. He started out at school. He was passionate about butterflies and butterfly collections. And the fact that butterflies are so beautiful, the camouflage really interested him, that how they matched up with particular plants and particular species. But it's this interest in painting, drawing. I'd say he was challenged on music. Music's never been a strong forte of our family, but bricklaying, you should all go and visit his home Chartwell. I live very close to Chartwell in Kent. It's a beautiful location and it really gave him inspiration. And the key when you're in political office is to have friends in every part of the network. So my great-grandfather used to read all the socialist newspapers and magazines. He wanted to understand what people were thinking. He had great thinkers who came to him constantly. Throughout the 1930s, he had German military people privately visiting him at Chartwell, telling him what Nazification was going to mean. So having that broad hinterland is so important. It's really important for political leaders to speak with their own fire, from the heart, with passion, because that's how you get your message going. And when he turned around to Parliament in those dark days to say, I have nothing to honour but blood, toil, tears and sweat. You mean action, you're going to crack on. And I must say, he very cheekily told de Gaulle, he said to de Gaulle, we're not fighting for France, we're fighting for champagne. And here, today is the 60th anniversary of my great-grandfather's death, the 150th since he was born. And let us raise our glasses to Sir Winston and Spencer Churchill. To Sir Winston.
Sir Winston. Yes.
This exhibition is my 5th. 1 year ago, all this with a new exhibition and opening were something on a faraway planet. But back in 2020, I went on the first meeting in London with Curtis Brown, who is the administrator of copyrights of Winston Churchill's books and paintings. They and the Churchill family agreed to give me access to the paintings so I could finally bring this exhibition to life. Back then, I got a designer, but the corona and new job did get all of my attention, and over there, 3 years, nothing moved. Then in March this year, a new designer, Anker Norup, who is not here today, did show up, and I really felt that now we have time to finally make it. But I didn't have a nice venue, which is very difficult here in Copenhagen if you are a private person. I nearly lost hope when I got the idea to ask the Lord Mayor, Michael Winfield, on Frederiksberg Castle during a soldier day, if I not could get this beautiful exhibition to this town hall, which is in my own borough. After a few weeks, the reply came back that it would be possible. Then Anker, my designer, had to stop in late September, halfway in finishing the exhibition. A few weeks later, Randolph said yes to come over to open it, and the date had been fixed. In late November, I really were afraid that I couldn't find a designer for making the rest of the exhibition and other things related to this. But through Facebook, I found Maria Jørgensen. She came to my rescue and made it all happen during December.
Congratulations.
We have had a fantastic cooperation so that this exhibition were able to be printed in the beginning of this year at Monster Cheap in Brøndby. Everything fell into line within weeks. So here we are in front of Winston Churchill behind the easel, 1960 to 1957. An idea has come true. The exhibition shows the greatest Britain at all-time war leader through the Second World War had other gifts and interests than just a life in politics. I think in these dark times with war in Europe and other global problems, it is the right time to show the more unknown but colorful side of Winston Churchill. Churchill's granddaughter, Edwina Sandys, has written the introduction, which gives a little extra touch from the family. The 50 paintings has been chosen by me after many thoughts. Churchill painted over 500, and were of course difficult to choose the 50 that should be here in this exhibition. I hope the colors and beauty would give the visitors a wow, could he paint effect. There's also 5 banners, live and painting 1960 to 1957, which should give the visitor a glimpse into Churchill's hectic life beside painting. The exhibition is in all made for the purpose to give the visitors more interest into Churchill's greatest pastime. I wish to thank, first of all, the Churchill family for giving me permission to use the paintings in this exhibition. Thanks to the Lord Mayor, Kenny Brolev, Anker Norup and Maria Jørgensen for working hard to make this a possibility to open today. Photograph Jan Engelhardt for taking pictures, and the journalist Jan Hedegaard, who's not here today, who is a writer who has written a lot of books about Churchill here in Denmark in the recent years. He couldn't be here today. So let's give a toast to Winston Churchill and for you and for the memory of your father who died here 60 years ago today.
Thank you very much indeed. To Sir Winston again. I'd like to do one other toast, and that is to the brave Danish people who stood up and fought to preserve their nation and the liberties. And there must only be a very few of those left nowadays, but there will be one or two of those left. But to the Danish undercover people who served their nation so brilliantly, to Denmark.
Velkommen. Vi er jo ikke vant til sådan altid at have udenlandske gæster. Det er jo skønt at have udenlandske gæster, og i år er det faktisk et jubilæum og en udstilling i Frederiksberg og Rådhushal, som det handler om. Og i den anledning, så kan jeg byde velkommen til min gæst. Welcome to you, Randolph Churchill, who is here because you're opening a art exhibition.
Well, thank you very much. It's wonderful to be back here in Copenhagen, such a beautiful city. And of course, it's 80 years to the day of my great-grandfather's death, which was commemorated in such solemn dignity all those years ago. But then it's 75 years ago from when he received such a great welcome here in your city. 5 years after the end of the Second World War, hundreds of thousands of people came out onto the street.
Writing on the window with a diamond at the Royal Palace.
Well, why not?
Yeah, why not? It was. Yeah, I think he got the highest order, the Elephant Order, I believe.
He did. So we look after that award very carefully at his home at Churchill, where it's on display. So anybody from Denmark who goes and visits his home at Churchill can go and see that award he received. And of course, what was emotional for him is at that time there were lots of Danish people who had participated undercover to help with the liberation. And so it was so shortly afterwards. And of course, there may be one or two of those alive today.
A few, very few.
But there are very, very few. But there will be a few Danish people who will remember my great-grandfather's visit with his wife Clementine in 1950, when he spent, I think, 2 or 3 days here with the royal family, and it must have been a time of great satisfaction and contentment. And it was also a time when Churchill was starting to warn strongly about the dangers of the Soviet Union, the Iron
Curtain and all that. Yeah. I'm old enough to remember his death and the funeral, because black and white. It was morning music in the radio for 2 or 3 days, so it was a big thing for a little boy who think why. But my father was old enough to remember the war, so it was a big thing, you can say, that was commemorated here in Denmark then, and it's actually a bit of a jubilee, this art exhibition. Because that's why you're here.
Absolutely.
He was a passionate, what do we call it, a painter in his free time.
Well, totally. And I'm absolutely thrilled that in the City Hall today, we're opening this beautifully prepared exhibition, which has been organised by my friend Narbaja. And, it's Churchill's humanity. He first and foremost was a human being, a family man. He was always passionate about so many things. And if you go and visit his home at Churchill, you'll just see what a wide hinterland of interests he had, from butterfly collecting to bricklaying, to playing with the children. My father was born in October 1940 at the Prime Ministerial home of Chequers, and a bomb landed from the Luftwaffe that night. And my father remembers growing up, as Churchill's grandson in 10 Downing Street. And for his 4th birthday during the war, Churchill managed to source a train set. And he put these 2 steam engines back to back. And he turns round to his grandson on his knees and he said, "We'll organise a great crash." So his humanity is very important, and this is what the exhibition tries to show.
Okay, yeah. And you are his great-grandchild.
I'm his great-grandson.
Yeah.
And we are the lucky generation. Mostly we've lived in freedom and liberty. To see Europe as a united set of nations largely working together is fantastic. But clearly we still have the threat from these totalitarian dictatorial states. And we have to defend and preserve our freedoms. And I'm very keen as a Churchill that every young Danish person goes out and makes use of their freedom to vote. Because there are too many people in this world who don't have the ability to cast their freedom and
actually
their
have a
vote.
high percentage of voters. Yes, that's right, yeah.
Everybody has to participate into society to make it work.
You are not into politics yourself, Randolph.
No, it's a great relief. I think sometimes you have to let the genes lie. I'm passionate about supporting liberty, freedom, human rights, and I'm lucky enough to have a family, and so I've got enough to keep me going.
Because you are involved in different kinds that's regarding Winston Churchill.
Indeed, and also the legacy of the Second World War, and it's thrilling. There are still some service people who served during the Second World War, and there'll be some in Denmark. And again, whilst we can capture their memories, it's a wonderful thing to do.
So it's actually 50 paintings that the audience can see now at the town hall.
Well, that's absolutely thrilling that so many are depicted in the exhibition. Remarkably, my great-grandfather, he completed over 600 paintings. He wrote more than Shakespeare and Charles Dickens put together. He completed 37 books. He wrote so many speeches which inspired people. And I think today, when you look at leadership, I think messaging has to be simple. Sometimes messaging is all too complex. And, you need a bit of Churchill. We shall fight them on the beaches. We shall fight them on the oceans. We shall fight them on the landing grounds. We shall never surrender. And it's very important for political leaders to make their messaging simple, understandable. And the younger generation maybe need to take a bit more responsibility at times.
And in these years, Winston Churchill is more used in books, TV series, movies. I think I've never seen so many examples right now. How is that in these days?
I think obviously he was there at the crux of was Western civilization going to come to an end? And, the liberation of Denmark is a clear example of the success of Britain standing alone, the alliance with the United States. So, we have to remember those things. And, of course, there are so many incredible stories of remarkable bravery, particularly from the resistance people. They would have been young people at the time, standing up against their occupiers so bravely. And you can't dampen that human spirit. You've got to keep the flame of democracy alight. And those issues are still going on today. And I must say I'm in absolute admiration and awe of President Zelensky in Ukraine. Ukraine has been fought over too many years in history. This war is utterly pointless, and Putin's got one objective, and that is to sort of recreate the Russian Empire. He likes to complain about the British and their empire, but this is all about Russian imperial power. But we need to bring this war to an end as well, and Zelensky has been very, very brave. And as Europeans, we have to stand together on this. We can't count on America always to help us.
So going to this exhibition, where there will be a lot of, you can learn a lot about Winston Churchill too, at the exhibition is a remembering of why we stand up.
Absolutely. And I think for Danish people, when they go and visit the exhibition, which I'd strongly encourage you to, it's also a chance to go for the young generation to speak to their grandparents of what it was like to live through those years, because they'll all have their own stories, and those stories are really important to capture. Denmark played a great role in doing their best to keep the beacon of democracy alight. And certainly my great-grandfather today would shed a tear to see how Europe has come together to work together. But we must remember our liberties have to be worked on and preserved.
Fought for and worked for, yeah.
Exactly.
Every time.
Every time.
All the time, yes.
Yes.
René Churchill, thank you very much for coming here.
Super. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you very much indeed.